So nothing happens without a woman, and it's time for us to change the way we think because it has been ingrained in us from generations. And we can say, oh, it's the man's fault, it's the man's fault, but a lot of the things are coming from ourselves. I mean, my boss or my coworkers never sabotage me. I sabotage myself. So it's time for us to change that and get this word out that women, you can do more. You can be yourself. You don't have to adjust the way you lead to get what you are. There is a way, but there's two pieces that are missing. The confidence is one, and the other one is the action, taking the steps. Because by sitting and complaining and worrying and being complacent where you are, nothing's going to happen. So that is what I really, really want to do.
Welcome to Making Change with Your Money, a podcast that highlights the stories and strategies of women who experienced a big life transition and overcame challenges as they redefined financial success for themselves. Now here's your host, certified financial planner, Laura Rotter.
I am so excited to have as my guest today, Ana Barreto. Ana is a Brazilian-American author, transformational teacher, coach, Feng Shui consultant, and speaker dedicated to empowering women to find balance and fulfillment through mindfulness. After overcoming burnout and self-sabotage in her corporate career, Ana discovered her passion for guiding others towards greater purpose and joy. She's the founder of the Mind, Body, and Wisdom School for Women and is the author of 6 books on personal growth topics for women, including her latest book, Embrace Your Success, 8 Tools to Improve the Quality of Your Life. So welcome, Ana, to the Making Change with Your Money podcast.
Thank you, Laura. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm looking forward to our conversation, Ana. My first question, as always, is what was money like in your family growing up?
In my house, we never talk about money. We don't ask questions about money. And I didn't know we were poor until much later in life. When my dad was a sole provider, my mom stayed home. There were 6 kids in a house. Yeah. And I heard about their beginnings being tough. And then for a period of time, probably from when I was a year old to maybe 10 or 11, things were good. I didn't see anything, but then things got really, really bad. My parents got evicted from their house. I was in my teen years and I was already working, giving guitar lessons just to get my spending money because I couldn't really ask my parents for money. And many times my money was used to pay bills and pay the electric bill because there was turn off or buy food. So things were tough.
Wow, that really must have had an impact on you and your siblings.
Oh, absolutely. I think probably until very recently, I did not know how that had impacted me because it drove me to be more ambitious and, all of the little things that my mother would say and it's still in the back of your mind. And you don't treat money the way we're supposed to treat money. We're supposed to talk about. And I think until probably 15 years ago, I didn't really had a great relationship with money. And I got into debt. I always work hard. I always made the money, but I didn't know how to keep the money and invest the money. And, but I was very lucky that things have come around my life that showed me. I get great mentors and teachers and even a money doula who helped me clear the fear of money, and which I see in a lot of women these days. Many women do not know how to relate with money. If you came from money, you have a completely different relationship if money was on and off or no money at all. And I believe that we probably learned by osmosis from our house growing up.
Yes. And I guess I did hear you say something to the effect of, we're supposed to talk about money. I was at a party Saturday night and a therapist said to me something that I've heard often, which is people are more likely to talk with her about their sex life than they are to talk about how much they earn. So I would, in that statement, just say that most people do not hear about money in homes they grow up. It's really more what you see your parents do, or maybe the little asides that your parents make, but actually talking about how much things cost, how much people earn, it just never happens. We're supposed to somehow just grow into adulthood and know it. And then, though I didn't grow up in poverty, there was definitely financial tension in the family I grew up in. And I think there is a way in which, and I'm curious if you had that experience as you've been dealing with this over the last 15 years, that you don't even realize that unconsciously you don't want to do better than you don't want to insult your parents by doing better than them. And sometimes people actually sabotage themselves without even realizing that it's sort of a way of not showing up their parents. It's an interesting thing I've heard several people say.
I do believe you're right. I do believe, but it's an unconscious behavior, totally unconscious behavior. I didn't want to outgame my parents, because when I left my house, which in Brazil you don't leave your house until you're married. So I lived right before my 18th birthday, and my mom didn't talk to me for 6 months. My dad didn't talk to me for about 9 months to a year. And when my mom talked to me, she told me that my father said to her, "Oh, don't worry, she's coming back." So because I heard that, I always felt that going back was never an option, and I'm going to do so. Everything I did was always to prove to them, even after my dad had passed, I was still behaving like I had to prove to them that I was worthy, that, it was a good decision, me leaving the house, that I can do it on my own.
What was the decision to leave the house at 18? What did you leave the house to do? How were you able to do that without the support of your parents?
So in my house, it was very patriarchal. Women have no decisions. My mother had no decisions. I talk about in my books that my mother didn't pick the color of the curtains in the living room. My father did everything. The dress that she went to church every Sunday, he's the one who bought. He came home with the dress, and that's what she wore. And I felt that something wasn't quite right. And my father was very abusive, even though before he died, he didn't believe he was. But I knew there was something was off. But the biggest point was I finished high school, and in Brazil, you can only go to public universities. There's private universities, but it's so expensive, unaffordable. And the public universities are the best. So I didn't get in the first year, so I had to kind of find a job. And I learned to play guitar, so I started teaching music in an elementary school, preschool actually. And I was making, working 3-4 days, couple of hours, making, spending money. And then there was an opportunity for me to work at a hotel. I spoke some English enough to be hired at a 4-star hotel in Rio, which is, basically tourism. And that job for 6 hours, 5 days will pay me 4 times what I made teaching in 2 schools. So I told my mom that I would. And my mom talked to my dad, because everything had to be approved by my dad. And my father said, absolutely not. He said that women who work in hotels are prostitutes, and his daughter wasn't. So you can see the mentality. So I made a decision I went to my friend's house, and I never went back. Actually, I just went back maybe a week just to pick up some of my things, and I started the job. And from there, I was on my own. I stayed with friends for a month until I got my paycheck. And then I moved in with one of my best friends. We were roommates for a few years until I moved back to New York. And not moved back, but until I made a decision to move to New York.
I have to say, Anna, it's very impressive as you describe the family system you grew up in, to have the confidence in yourself, which couldn't have been easy to move forward without the approval of your parents. I mean, for any of us, let alone household that is dominated by one parent, that's a very hard thing to do. What's your sense of where that came from in you?
It's funny because after being in America for a few years, I had shared with a friend of mine that when I lived in Brazil, I was very confident. For some reason, I think it's an innate. I always had that role of leadership. Every time there was a group, I was always the one leading, making the decisions in school. Those kind of groups and projects. I always took the leadership. So was that. Then I came to America. I totally lost my confidence. I don't know what you when, and I believe that is now I understand what was there is the self-talk, is that what you say to yourself after someone stopped talking. And because my father was very patriarchal, he was, you do good, I was great in school. I always had the highest grades. I did sports. Sports is another thing that I believe it's so important for women to do if they love it, because after I lost a volleyball game or a handball game, and I would be crying home, and my parents never went to any of my events or anything else, and you just like swallow your cry. That's what my mother would say, and my father would say, engole o choro, swallow your cry. So you learn to be a little bit more tough. And even though sometimes when I lost a game, and I think that being in sports gave me a lot of my courage, a lot of my perseverance. I remember when I was 15, I told my mother that when I was 18, I'm going to leave home because I could not live in that kind of environment. Something was deeply wrong. You cannot put the finger what it is, because you don't defy your parents. You don't complain to others about your parents. So all of those things, I think, drove me to. I believe at one point, because here, I'm in America, I think was destiny. I had to be here. And that was just the path that was carved for me by, a higher power, I believe.
I love that you just shared that belief with us. I'm always interested if there's a sense that there's something guiding one in one's journey. I do want to explore when you came to the States and what that was. It's been in my head. You have 4 brothers. Were they supportive of you as you made your decisions, or were they more identified with your father and that kind of?
So my old brother at that time had already left the house when our parents got evicted. He just went on his own. He was still in high school, but he was able to stay in one of his friends' house and do well from there. He actually was supportive, but he's still with that mentality, don't do anything stupid, All my other brothers were younger. I have always been the peacemaker of the family since early on. So I kind of got my older brother and sister to kind of be nicer to my younger brothers and sister, my other brothers. So they were supported, but most of all is once I left and I started making good money, I was helping my younger brothers. So they always have been supportive of me.
That's very nice. So how did you decide to leave for the States? When did that happen?
So talk about a higher power. So by then I was already meditating, and I learned meditation. As a teenager, I learned Christian meditation, and then when I was probably 18, I learned about all kinds of meditations and alpha meditations, and I just did that not because I was a meditator, but because it felt good, And one day I got up, I had to go to work, I was meditating, and I had a vision. And I don't know if that vision was more of, I wasn't dreaming, Laura, and I was not awake, but I could see myself in this place. And in this situation, I was talking to other people that I did not know, and I was speaking to them in English. Me in Rio did not know what I was saying, but the people in New York, I knew was New York for some reason, even though I never been in New York, knew what I was talking. When I came out, I said, "Oh my God, I'm going to New York." And the funny
How old
thing is,
were you? Sorry to
I
interrupt.
was, no, I was 20. I was 20 years old. And up to then, I had studied British English. The private school that I took classes was British. So I always thought I was going to London. I was going to Europe. And everything kind of was so fast because it was hard to get a visa to come into the country. But I work in a 5-star hotel at that point. I had a good job. So I came. I had two friends that were coming as well, but they were coming for visiting to explore. And I had friends all over the world. And I had a friend who lived here, actually many friends who live in America by then, because in the hotel, you make these connections. So that was in February. On March 28th, I arrived in New York. And 2 days later, we were walking around the neighborhood, and my vision was in Mamaroneck, New York. So you probably know exactly where it is.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So we were walking, and that is exactly where it was. There was a motel, there was a seafood restaurant across the street, and that where it was there. So I knew that there was something bigger for me to do. I always kind of knew. We had the sense. I didn't know what it was, but my plan was to come, 6 months, learn some English, improve my English, make some money, and then go back. And I was very, very lucky that my friend got me a job in Rye. I was the housekeeper, the dog walker, and the woman I worked for, also the same name as your Laura, she hired me, and she got me a tutor at the Rye Library. And so Miss Salamina, love her to death. She has passed since, but she knew I had potential, and she got me to go to college. Westchester Community College is, from there, I kind of loved business and marketing. Once I realized I wanted to do marketing, they told me that I need to go to my 4-year degree. And that's when they told me I didn't have any money. Many semesters I had to take 2 classes because I didn't have enough money to pay. And they told me find a way. And I did. I went to Marymount College. They gave me a 50% scholarship because I had really good grades. And I was able to continue to work and go to school until I graduated. So that was the beginning of my mission, because going to an all-girls school, I learned the rights of women. So everything that I knew was wrong growing up now was opening up to me, because I was reading about women's history. I was reading literature. I was being educated in what needs to be ethics. And that was the seed that began, because I start learning about how women have been treated. I would read books and I'll cry from reading the books about the stories of people that we thought was great thinkers of the ages, and the opinions about women. And so that for me kind of hit a core, and that was the beginning that I decided that I really need to do something about it, but never knew how that's going to be at that point. Yeah.
So you did not stay with the hotel chain. You came on your own, assuming you were going to stay for a couple of months and go back home. That's correct?
Yes, correct.
And how did you end up in Westchester? People you knew from the hotel lived in Westchester?
Yes. So if you traveled, especially in the 80s and the 70s, in Brazil wasn't a really great, safe place for tourists. And there was a lot of people, the taxi driver, the bus driver, everybody tried to take advantage of the tourists, because Americans had dollars, which was probably, 12 times more worth the money in Brazil. And because who I am, I would tell people, don't do that. This is how much you need to pay. Go to this place, avoid this. And with that, I made friends all over the world. And one of the friends said to me, "Oh, why don't you come to New York? Come to New York for a few months." And he's actually was dating one of my friends. And that was the connection in Mamaroneck, New York. He connected me to my first job, my first babysitting, my first dog walk. So that was the thing. It's just not, it wasn't a miracle that, everything kind of lined up my place. Those are connections that I had made earlier, that they saw, okay, this girl's going to do okay. Let's just help her this way or that way. And I didn't even drive when I got here.
Right. And in
So,
Westchester, that's tough. In the city, I mean, frankly, my sister, I grew up in the city, and my sister still doesn't drive. She lives in Brooklyn, so but if you're in Westchester, it's very hard to get around. So Anna, you're clearly very, very driven woman. So how did the story evolve? You graduated, you were working in marketing, is that correct?
yes, yeah. I was working sales and marketing. Yeah.
And always driven to keep women's empowerment in mind, I'm assuming.
Yes. So I worked for hotels here too. And I was going to school. And this is what I love about people who work and go to school at the same time, because whatever you're learning, especially if you're studying the same thing, whatever you're learning in the classroom, you are using in their work. And I was so excited to learn. I love, learning new things and in management and women. And every time I see something wrong, I would say, I'm going to write a book about it. and, and I have like, if I look at my old files, I have maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 books that I started about something that had to do with women or had to do with management and leadership and all of those things. And and I once I made it, because once I became a sales manager, and then I became a senior sales manager, then a director of sales, then a director of sales and marketing. Many of my meetings, there were more men in the room than me, than women. And I was, especially when I became a director of operations, I was the only woman in the room for most of the time. And I always complain. I was, why can we hire more women? What's going on? Why can we hire so? And I seen situations where women had been passed for promotion because they just got engaged. And the big boss said, she got engaged, her head is going to be in a cloud, we can't promote her. Or because somebody got pregnant, we don't know if she's going to come back, So there was, because I was in the director level and I was part of that conversation, and I used to, that doesn't mean that. And I was always outvoted. I think the worst thing was when we had my company had hired a woman, she left and a guy came behind. And all the women that she had on a pipeline for promotion got cut out. And that particular day, I just said, that's enough. That's absolutely enough. We need to do something. And that's when I created a program in the company. I went to my boss and said, look, we need to promote more women. He agreed. I was teamed up with the HR manager, and I put the program together because I knew I work with women in all different levels. This is what they're missing. This is what is going to get them promoted. And we came up with this program, which was, we were able to get 28 people to be invited to the program that we met every month. We started with the biggest thing, that women have the least confidence. So we talked about the big piece was in the beginning, interpersonal skills, because we know that your first impression is everything. And then we need to have confidence to make the decisions. So the program went for 9-10 months. And at the end, we were able to promote 65% of them. And one of the women got promoted to director. So that was, I think, 2017 and so on. By then I already had written 2 books, one about, paying attention to what we do, and the second one about burnout, because women like me who are always trying to be the best, working twice as hard than the guys and having half of the recognition. So if you keep doing this thing, you get burnout. And in my book, I came up with a solution for it, but that's a whole different story. The first one, I tell you, because it was about my mother and things that happened there. I wrote it in Portuguese and then I translated it in English because I just don't have the words in Portuguese anymore. I've been in New York now for 35 years and I lived 20 years in Brazil. So you can do the math. I'm only 29.
Exactly.
So English is it's home. I feel many times when I'm home talking to my siblings, I ask them, what does it mean? Or what is the word for this? I don't know. And they are helping me or they're correcting me because I come up with words that doesn't exist in Portuguese. But I'm happy the way things are. I really am. So going back to my moment of deciding that we need more women. And I saw that the project really got attention from other people. Other divisions wanted to do it. And one thing also had happened is that some of the women that went through the training highly recommended, high potential, they turned the job down. They turned the promotion down. And I would be on the phone with them, or the other manager tried to convince them to take the job. And we knew that they would be absolutely successful. They had it. And that's what I saw, right? Then September 11th, COVID happened. I had a trip was a war trip that I won in Italy. And I was there. That's supposed to happen in 2020, but it ended up happening in 2023. So I went to the trip, and there I met about 12, 13 women. So if they had 12 to 13 women, they have maybe 16, 18 guys, because the company they still have more men than women. And that is not, fault of the company owned. So I stayed the first week. I talked to everybody, and I felt the same thing: the lack of confidence, the lack of not, being so successful, but not knowing how successful they were. And one after the other, and I was talking to them, and some of them I mentored until today. Then at the end of that week, the director was coming behind me, couldn't come, so I got to stay another week in Italy. For me, beautiful trip. And there was a whole different group of women, about 7 or 8, the same situations. They didn't feel that some felt overlooked. Some didn't want to even put her name on a hat for a promotion. Others had no confidence. And for you to be on this trip, you have to be the top of your game. So just by being there, you are incredible, successful under the company eyes, but they didn't feel. And even some people, the way they talk about themselves, they kind of sabotage. Thank God they are talking to me, not to other people. So at the end of that trip, I realized that my talents were being wasted at my job. Even though I made incredible money, had incredible benefits, the company is fantastic, I had made a decision that I was going to leave that job and work full time on my mission, which is to serve women and help them more have the confidence, the support, the direction that they need. The same way I had a vision in Brazil coming to New York back in 2020. I was working with a coach and telling her about my dream. And I said, I still have to pay for my kids' college. I still have to save for my retirement, all these things. And then she asked me, when do you think is going to be? And we kind of did a little meditation, and he said 2023. So I knew that in 2023, something's going to happen. I didn't know how it's going to be, but I know so many things happened. My company had changed the way people retired. So I was able to take an early retirement and not leave all the money that I had made behind. And now I am, I had already started the Body, Mind, Wisdom School for Women, but I really never promoted. I never did anything. I was just giving people that I was coaching on the side, take this class, listen to this, take this meditation, that kind of stuff. And now I know I'm a full force, getting my word out, because this is not just about my work. It's about getting the word out that women are amazing. Nothing happened without us. Nothing happens. You could not be here if it wasn't for your mother. I couldn't be here if it wasn't for my mother, right? So nothing happens without a woman. And it's time for us to change the way we think, because it has been ingrained in us from generations. And we can say, oh, it's the man's fault, but a lot of the things are coming from ourselves. I mean, my boss or my coworkers never sabotage me. I sabotage myself. So it's time for us to change that and get this word out that women, you can do more. You can be yourself. You don't have to adjust the way you lead to get what you are. There is a way, but there's two pieces that are missing. The confidence is one, and the other one is the action, taking the steps. Because by sitting and complaining and worrying and being complacent where you are, nothing's going to happen. So that is what I really, really want to do.
I have to agree, Anna, that I think so many women, it's not only women, but a lot of women really do suffer from imposter syndrome and holding ourselves back from taking risks and not even really being clear what exactly the dream is that we want to take a risk towards. It's not always so obvious. You, on the other hand, do seem to be a woman who in 2020, you already knew that you wanted to go on your own. Is that correct? Is that what you?
Yes, yes. I always knew I wanted to do on my own. And I tried in 2004. I was at my dream job in New York City, living the dream, taking the commute from Rye to New York City, walking a couple blocks and being to the office, going for dinner later on, that I had all that, but I was not happy. I wasn't happy. And I had an opportunity to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. And it wasn't too clear. I knew that I wanted to be on my own. And back then I had this idea that I was going to open a tea shop after seeing a tea shop, because I'm a tea avid. I don't know if you see here, but I drink tea all day. I love tea, love mixing tea and all the fun stuff. So one day I walk into my office and they decided they had sold my the company that I work for, but the unit, and I could go to Chicago or Boston, either to be the number one in one and the number two in the other. I had an agreement with my ex-husband that I would not take the kids so many miles away, so that was not an option. I said, okay, so let me just take the summer off. And then I figured out what I wanted to do. They gave me a good package, and I really didn't have to take the summer off because the next day an opportunity came about and I couldn't really say no. So I became a consultant overnight, doing exactly what I did before, which I love business, and I was going in, and for them to asking me to come in and kind of fix some of the hotels that I was going around was amazing. I love it. And I was traveling, which I love. And then if I wasn't traveling, I was home with my kids. So everything was going fine until 2007. We have the crisis that nobody was hiring anybody. That's when I almost went bankrupt, and I used all my credit cards and maxed out everything and almost lost my house. And I was able to, get out of that mess. I sold my house, and then I went back to get another job back in the hotels. That was a wake-up call for me, because I had, when you do your master's degree and they talk about business, you learn that a lot of business fails in the first year, second year. And I was just looking around to see what's going on, because I had moved, what's going on in this town. Let me just see what's going on. And the business were going out of business every other. So I'm not sure if it was because of the economy or because the rents were too high and really didn't have enough movement to make the business profitable. I learned that I can think and I can ask for help. So a lot of the things that needed to happen, I wrote this last book that came through a meditation anyway. Some of the things to embrace your success, because by all means, being a Brazilian who came here with, less than $500 and didn't speak good English, finished college, at a long time, got a scholarship and did all that. I wasn't a failure. I wasn't a failure. So I didn't have anybody else to prove anymore. It was just about me. If I had opened a tea shop at the time that I wanted to, it would fail, because I didn't have all the pieces. And back then, I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to ask for mentorship. I didn't know how to reach out to a stranger and say, what do you think about that? Even though I had a mentor, it was a man, by the way, that I could ask and bounce questions out of him and he would tell me. I didn't have the acumen and the confidence. I didn't, and the ambition and the desire and the full vision of my mission, because that's what drives. I'm on my own. I come to the third floor of my house from my office. I could sleep into 10 o'clock if I wanted to, but at 7 o'clock, I'm already in my office. Why? My passion is the one that is driving. And back then in 2007, that wasn't clear. It wasn't really clear that I need to serve women, because there's so much more that they can do. I don't have to do this together. If I help a bunch of them, they all will lift as well. And so that was pretty much it for me.
So when did you start your current business? And can you describe to our listeners who it is you work with and what it is that you do?
So I have 6 books. My main means of communications is through my books. I have The Women, Rice, and Beans. Self-Trust is about burnout. There is a higher power within. There is a meditation. The 9 Powers of Women, that is about women understanding that what people think is weakness in women is also a power. It's a major form of strength. And so I have my first book in Portuguese and Spanish, and then my last book, The Embrace Your Success. So with that, I created the School for Women, which is body, mind, and wisdom. I write for women. My material is for women, even though some of them can be translated to men. And I heard that over and over, but I'm following my passion. And in the school, I have classes, some free, some paid. I also have meditations. Some meditations are free and others are also paid. I have audio classes. It's just to have the conversation for women so they can understand that they can do more. So I use the mindful approach. I always, I have coach clients and that would start about their space, because your space is either supporting you or depleting you. One of the things that I'm offering women is this free class that they can have 3 morning actions that can bring their best self forward, no matter what. Because some days we are happy, some days we are not. Some days we had a fight with the kids, had a fight with a spouse, and that impacts our emotions. So if you do these 3 little things every day, you're going to be your best every day. Now, the majority of my meditations and talks are on Insight Timer because they have a broader reach. And that's why usually a lot of my customers are coming from. They are business people, they are therapists, they are teachers, they are lawyers that they want to find the mindfulness, the clarity for their career. They always wanted to do something else, but what? They are not happy where they are. And I do help women find the clarity through my books or my meditation or through my coaching, because it's just, for many years, we have been thinking out of here, out of our head. And we need to bring this down to our heart. Women are not being foolish by just, ignoring things. It's not that. It's just, we are called now to live more on purpose. And even if you're not living on purpose, that means your work is supporting your purpose or mission. All these years that I work for these great companies, I have nothing bad to say about the companies I work for. I'm not one of those stories that said, oh my God, my company was horrible. I had to leave and do this. I didn't have none of that. If we reframe our mindset, we know that this company is helping us to create what we want to. Another thing that is very important is a lot of women are time poor. I talk about timefulness, which is the time management with a mindful spin. That's why I believe that in all leadership, in all this business, in all, everything, the mindfulness is the secret ingredient that's missing in everything that we do.
And I'm curious, Ana, what are the practices that you have integrated into your own life to keep you centered in your purpose?
I meditate every day. No matter what. So even if I didn't sleep well last night and I snoozed my alarm 2 or 3 times, I will meditate, even if it has to do in the shower. But the three practices that I tell you that it's so important, not only for women, is the body-mind code. It's science, by the way, because there's science behind where before you start your meditation, you lean against something solid, like the chair or your headboard, and you breathe. You take 3 deep breaths and you say to yourself, I am safe. Because the body will betray you if you don't groom them in a way. Then you sit, you feel your butt in a chair, and you say to yourself, I am supported. Because you need to feel supported, because all the decisions it builds your confidence. Your hormones get improved. And the third one is your heart, where you focus in your heart, and you say to yourself 3 times that you are infinite being. Why? Because you know that all the knowledge, everything that is available for you to make decisions, it's there. It's not outside, it's inside. And by tapping into inside at that moment, you have access to incredible wisdom, incredible intuition, and you can follow. I say to everybody that meditation is just not a new thing, has been in practice for ages. And if for anything, people think that they cannot meditate, but meditation makes you quiet enough to hear and you're strong enough to act. You can get a lot out of meditation, not only physical, but I think for women it's more in their mindset, the way they feel, because we work a lot out of our right brain. And the meditation allows you to be congruent, do what you really think, feeling, and doing are all one and the same.
Thank you. As a meditator myself, it does make me more in touch with what it is that I truly want, and just sort of a calmer core. As we get to the end of our conversation, Ana, I do always like to explore with my guests how your definition of success and perhaps financial success may have shifted over these years.
Yes. So for me, financial success, I do have a number. Let me tell you that I have a number because I still support my mother. So
really,
and yes, my mother's in a home in Brazil. She has dementia, and I am better off than most of my siblings. So I put the bigger part of the bill there, happily. My mother was an incredible woman. I'm very, very grateful. And for me, success is that I am congruent, that what I'm thinking, what I want to do, and the way I feel is aligned. It's one purpose. The financial success, I do have a number, and I know that number is going to come. I no longer ignore money like I did. I know I didn't tell you that earlier, but there were when I was going through crisis, I didn't open bills for months. And I remember when I moved, I found a check for over $5,000 that I totally forgot about it, So and it's not that the money wasn't around. I made the money. I didn't pay attention to money. So my financial success is I do pay attention to money. I have the number, and I see getting closer to that number over and over, even though it's scary that I walk away from a great job and benefits without having that particular number. But I know in my heart that because I am congruent and I'm following that higher power, that intuition, that everything's going to work out, and that I will be able to provide for myself so my children won't have to do for me what I am doing for my mother.
And I see how much family is important to you, both from how you needed to get away when you were in your formative years, but yet you clearly have still quite a close relationship and a strong feeling of responsibility towards your family. And I just want to acknowledge that. And that's clearly one of your values. Thank you so much for this conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to be sure that our listeners hear from you before we go? And I will, of course, include your free resources, the show notes.
No, thank you. So if anyone wants to have a free conversation with me, they can go to my website and find me and schedule. No questions asked if they feel that we are not supposed to, if I cannot improve the quality of their lives. But check me out, because I do give a lot of freebies to women in particular that they can help them improve the quality of their lives.
Thank you so much, Ana. This was such a nice conversation. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ana Barreto, founder of the Body, Mind, and Wisdom School for Women. And some of my takeaways: recognize the mission that is calling to you. Ana grew up in a very patriarchal society in Brazil. She shared that in her own family, her mother did not make any decisions without her father, including the color of the curtains and what dress to wear to church on Sunday. When Ana announced that she had been offered a well-paid job at a hotel, she had to move out of her parents' house in order to accept it, because her father forbade her to work there. As a result of her upbringing, Ana felt called to work on gender equality and women's empowerment in the workplace. My second takeaway: confidence is a skill you can learn. Ana was instrumental in starting a program at her company that identified women leaders for promotion. The program began by helping women build their confidence. Lack of confidence was often the number one thing getting in the way of them getting ahead. The program helped the women build their interpersonal skills, since first impressions are so important, and then their confidence to make big decisions. My third takeaway: mindfulness is the secret ingredient missing in everything we do. Ana believes that mindfulness can help with time management, with leadership, basically with dealing with the many stressors in our lives. Scientific studies have shown that meditating just 8 minutes a day can help us feel calmer and sense more congruence between our actions and our feelings. And finally, pay attention to your money. Ana shared that there was a time in her life when she ignored her money. She didn't open her bills for months. She even found a check for over $5,000 that she had totally forgotten about. She recommends knowing your net worth, which is the sum of your assets minus your liabilities, and have a number in mind that you're working towards, and know where your money is going. If this has struck a chord with you, please don't hesitate to schedule a conversation with me so you could begin to use your money to live your life on purpose. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss next week's episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leaving a rating and a review will help other people just like you to find it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Making Change with Your Money. Certified financial planner Laura Rotter specializes in helping people just like you organize, clarify, and invest their money in order to support a life of purpose and meaning. Go to www.trueabundanceadvisors.com/workbook for a free resource to help you on your journey. Disclaimer: please remember that the information shared by this podcast does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, investment, or financial advice. It's for information purposes only. You should seek appropriate professional advice for your specific information.